tapestry of the Bible. And so it was nice to get to know him again. And so I want to tell you a little bit about the author before I get into the lesson. This was a young man who did sacrifice. He actually was taken from his homeland, and he was taken to a faraway land, and he was kept in captivity. And while he was there, he worked his way up, even oppressed as he was, he worked his way up to become the king bearer's cup bearer. Most people think of a cup bearer as somebody who just walks up and hands someone a cup. Well, it's not. It's much more complicated than that. In fact, it is so complicated. Let me give you an example. Kings at the time were assassinated through what they ate and drank, and it was typically for that. So they were to taste everything that the king would taste. Now, I don't know about you, but I've gone to several places with my family and shared a meal, and I have no problem when they take something off of my plate. But a colleague or someone you barely know that's not related to you by marriage or something reaches across your plate, it gets really awkward. So keep in mind that this is the king of Persia who has decided that this is his cupbearer, and he is one of his most trusted people in his cabinet that he counsels with. So this is a high honor. This is not a small task. Everything the king will go through and talk about, he's going to want to talk about with somebody he considers his highest counsel, the one who would lay down his life for him. So Nehemiah becomes at the king's right hand. But Nehemiah is troubled. He's so troubled, in fact, and he's been praying for months for his homeland, because he keeps hearing reports that Jerusalem is still in disarray, that the wall is on the ground, and there's no hope, and that every time they start to rebuild, that savages come in and they rape the city again, and they just, they're constantly under attack and siege, so they're never able to really regroup, and they're always in crisis mode. Kind of sounds like what we live through today. Like every day we turn on the news and we have one crisis after another. Kind of dishevels us a little. So Nehemiah comes to serve the king one day, and Nehemiah approaches the king, and you're supposed to have a smile on your face when you're in the presence of royalty. It's an insult if you're the king and somebody comes up to you with a scowl on your face, or like you're not concerned about him. But he can't help himself. He's in mourning a little bit over his homeland. And so the king says to him, he says, "What's wrong?" And I'm going to paraphrase all this and shrink it down for you, because this is not the whole story, but I'm going to shorten it. So the king says, "What is wrong? You are usually happy, and I can tell you're happy, and today I can see that you're sad of heart. What is going on?" He really cared. This was a Persian king who could take his head off, have him killed for approaching him in this manner. And he says, "Wow, God must be in this moment." So he responds to the king. He says, "Well, I'm lonesome, and I want to go home because my homeland is in trouble, and I think I can help them." The king responds, "Well, how long will you be gone?" He says, "Well, I don't know." He says, "Well, it would really help, and I could come back quicker if I had the king's protection over me. So if you could write letters to all of our enemies and let them know that I have protection, your protection, that would go a long way." And the king says, "Okay, I can do that. What else can I do?" He says, "Well, I'm going to need lumber and possibly some help." So as he leaves to go home, he is accompanied with manpower, with lumber from the king's forest, and he has protection from all foreigners that want to come after him while he's rebuilding the wall. He goes home, and in a record time of 52 weeks, he re-erects the wall in spite of all the debris and all the adversity that he faced when he got home. If you've ever built a house, you know it doesn't take 52 days. 52 days is like a drop in the bucket to a lot of projects that we get started on. This man is a noble and sacrificial man who is very smart. So he gets everything done. But while he's there, he realizes that there's something missing, and it's not just a wall. The wall is just one part of what's really missing. They're missing their oath to their covenant. He has to figure out how to put back not just a wall, but what they need to bring to God so that they can continue to be blessed under his covenant. So he decides the best way he knows how, and I'm going to start further down in the lesson or the scripture this morning. I'm going to start in verse 30. But he divided it in 3 categories. He had 3 directives to teach everyone. And the first one is, we promise not to give our daughters into marriage and the people around us, or take their daughters for our sons. This is profound, because we go back to Adam and Eve, and what was the directive? You will become one, multiply, be a family. So right now he is deciding, and he's telling them that the family unit is where your faith should reside. You can't have faith in God if you don't have faith in marriage, and you certainly can't have faith in marriage if you don't have faith in God. That's called fidelity, and it needs and must comes first. Back then they would marry their daughters off, and they would arrange marriages. So this is aimed for the parents who are arranging marriages. They're telling them, don't bring in unbelievers into your family. And it's not because unbelievers are bad. I know great unbelievers who are extraordinary people. And I know some pretty shady believers. So it doesn't have anything to do with that. It just opens a door for the world to come into a sacred union. And it allows for one party not to have the same value or the same amount of value. Think of it this way. You have a plow, and it takes 2 oxes to run the plow. And if you put an ox and a donkey on one side, it's going to go around in circles. It's not going to go straight, and it won't give you the results or the benefits that it should give you, because a plow is meant to go forward and back. It's not meant to go in circles and do crop dusting circles. So he's right about this. So not only is sexual immorality is cut out, because we don't have to worry about all of our partners, but now you have a devoted partner that you never have to worry about. So that's the whole part of this, is fidelity. But it's not just that. When you have an unequally yoked child, or a marriage, and you have a child, at some point the values of both parents are going to be discussed. And that's the open door to the next generation not being given the full and understanded scope of what God wants us to bequeath to our children, the knowledge of God. It opens the door to the world once again. Keep in mind that every marriage and every wedding you go to in your lifetime, only one of them will work out of 2. It's a 50% divorce rate in the world. This is a contract that most people figure they can get out of. But it's not a contract in our vernacular, because we're Christians and we're people and believers of God. We're to believe that that's a covenant. And it's the first covenant that we understand on our level. So he goes in to talk about the next directive he has. He says in here, in 31, he says, when the neighboring peoples bring merchandise and grain to sell on the Sabbath, we will not buy from them on the Sabbath or on any holy day. Even in the 7th year, we will forego working the land, and we will cancel all debts. Now he's addressing the professional side of everyone's life. He's actually saying to them, listen, if you can't be faithful to God on the Sabbath or on the day that God has provided you to rest, how can you have integrity? What does that say about you? You're already doing the one thing to the one person that gives you everything. And people will look at that and go, well, wait a minute, is that person real? Or are they just telling me that they are faithful? Our actions are what speaks louder. God gives us 7 days, and out of that, 6 of them are ours. Only 1 of them is his. Well, they all are his, but you get what I'm saying. That's the day he set aside for us to rest and to worship him and be with him and dedicate that day. So he didn't ask for 3 days, he didn't ask for 4 days, he didn't ask for 5, he asked for 1. And we're meant to do that. And so by doing this, by him making this directive, it's reminding them that they have an obligation to this covenant, that it doesn't come freely. It's not just that, hey, you get this. There's a part of it that's on you to be obedient. And he's telling them to trust in the Lord. Don't look for your money to come from that one day of the week. Look for that money to come from the 6 days of the week, and learn to save. Be a saver, and you'll be okay. And if you trust in him, he will provide. But it talks about the 7th year and not tending the earth. Well, that's because the earth needs time to recover too. The crops will not yield as much if we continue to cultivate them. And if we continue to use the same use over and over, your favorite shirt, after maybe 50 washes, does not look like your favorite shirt anymore because it's been worn and torn. And the way we keep things new is that we know that there's a frequency that we have to not use it. We have to decide we want to keep that special. So we have to remember that God has a noble reason for everything he does. And at the last part, he says to forget and cancel debts. Your debt was canceled. And the only way you understand how to understand that amazing mercy that we have is for you to give that privilege to someone else. You don't have any idea what your mercy has been. You can, but you probably don't realize all the grains of sand of all the sin you've done that he's forgiven. And all he's saying is forgive the one. He's not asking you to forgive all the debts. He's saying just, this is something you need to pass on. So he goes into the next one, which is, this one is about the church, I will have to say. It's more about the house of God. But he goes in to say, we assume responsibility for carrying out the commandments to give 1/3 of a shekel each year to the service of the house of our God, for the bread and the table put out on the table, for the regular grain offering and the burnt offerings, for the offerings on the Sabbath, the new moon feast, and the appointed festivals, for the holy offerings, sin to make atonement for Israel, and all the duties of the house of God. He's making church a priority. So if you haven't really seen the kind of thing, it's family, business, and church. He's letting us know how we're to prioritize our lives. But he's letting us know right away that this is important. This church doesn't exist without you. When you don't come and you don't give your time and your talents and your tithe, the church doesn't exist. The church is supposed to exist long after you. So when I die, and all my stuff is all scattered out throughout the world, and I have no more, and nobody can remember my name, what I do in the church will be counted in heaven. And it will grow in perpetuity, because that is an investment into God's house. He wanted us to give something back to that so that his lineage would live on. This is a place of refuge. It's a place away from the world where we can disappear into this place and not worry about judgment or sin or anything else. We're flawed people looking for refuge. And he wants us to make it so strong that others can come and find that same refuge. And it cannot operate without each and every one of us. The Levites, he talks about we, the priests, the Levites, and the people. The Levites were the ones who were the managers of the house of God. They were the ones to take care of all the responsibilities. They made sure everything. But a manager is a manager. He has to have, or the manager has to have peons. Well, we are the peons. We're the ones who make everything work. And they're the ones who make sure that everything is in alignment and make sure that the inventory is cast. All of that. Families were asked, and it goes on to say, and people have cast lots to determine when each of the families to bring the house of God each time of the year a contribution of wood to burn on the altar and the Lord God, as it is written in the law. What he's saying here is that no family has to shield the entirety burden of any one thing he does. He's always going to share that burden through all of us. Many hands make light work, the kind of idea I'm going with. So the families, because of this, they did something pretty spectacular because of what they learned from this lesson, was they started combining their money. I don't know if you realize it, but the Jewish people, when the Holocaust happened, before that, they've always been exceptional and they've always been great. But they started pooling their money together for a long time, and that was one of the reasons why they were so hated, because people were simply jealous of their blessings. But they pooled their money together, and if they had a son or a daughter or a business to open, they would pool their money, and it would be in the same as casting lots. It's your turn. It's your family's turn. And it was always to keep the faithful alive. and well and communicated and incorporated. So this is a lesson that gets learned with people, not just in the church, but outside the church too. So we assume responsibility for bringing to the house of the Lord each year the first fruits and the first of our crops and every fruit tree. I know that you think you cook a mean meal and it's probably better the next day. It is not, because that's not God's best. And He's expecting His best from you. Because He gave you everything, He expects you to give Him your first back. That's important. Because He's not asking you for everything you have because He gave that to you. He's just asking you to be generous enough to turn around and say, thank you, here you go, Father. It is so critical that we understand that the covenant that we have is not sealed in ink. It is sealed in blood. It is sealed with a sacrifice. Jesus came to send us, to give us that sacrifice. And this covenant was sealed with His blood. We'll learn later on, not in this lesson, but you'll learn maybe in another lesson, that this cup giver is Jesus. So there is like hidden messages inside this message that shows us that each person that comes in this manner comes with a Jesus-like nature. And he, in Nehemiah, is showing that. And he's demonstrating the same message Jesus taught. All of this message is what Jesus taught. Woman and man are marriage. Same things all over again. So it goes on to say, moreover, we will bring to the storerooms of the house of our God, the priest, the first ground meal of our grain offerings, of the fruit, and out of the trees, a new wine, a new olive oil, and we will bring tithe of our crops to the Levites. For it is the Levites who collect the offerings of all the towns where we work. The Levites couldn't leave and go get a part-time job to make things work. Money runs everything, right? The Levites were responsible not to take on another responsibility to make things work. We're to supply them so that they can be ministers and they can keep everything running. It is upon us to do that. So he goes on to say, and the priest descended from Aaron is to accompany the Levites when they receive the tithes, and to the house of God, and to the storerooms of the treasury. The people of Israel, including the Levites, are to bring contributions of grain, new wine, olive oil, into the storerooms, where the articles for the sanctuary for the ministering priests and the gatekeepers and the musicians are also kept. This is a lesson in savings. Once again, he is telling us to prepare for the downtime. He's telling us it's okay to endow something, to give it a coffer, to be able to bring it so that it can live beyond us. He's saying, let's not just give it what it needs to operate, but let's give it future operating cost. Let's provide it so that it goes beyond you. And this is important because your children have this place to come to and have the house of God to always rely on at some point in their lives. Nehemiah was a strong man. He not only was the king's servant, the first king's servant, he was a cupbearer. He also built a wall. And at the end of the day, he renewed the covenant with God, with his people. By just letting his people know what was expected of them, they were able to figure out what to do next. So he made marriage first, your business second. He took and put a huge priority and a huge load on you for supporting your church. Whether you are someone who sings in the choir or the one who can't carry a tune that can help cook in the kitchen. Maybe you're somebody who greets at the door. Maybe you're someone who just pulls your checkbook out when it's needed. Whatever that is, he made that charge unto you, because this place will live beyond all of us. And it will be what we will know is for the next generation. And we don't need to just think about the next generation. We should know that God provided Nehemiah the wherewithal to do everything he did. It gave him the strength to stand up, to talk to a king, to put his life on the line, to do all these things. If he could do that to Nehemiah, he's done it to you. What have you not responded to that God has called you to do? So what I'd say to you today is don't think about the next time you're called. Just go with it. See how God blesses you from what you're called to bring. Because that's what Nehemiah did. And what he just didn't build a wall. He rebuilt the covenant. And that covenant is alive today. And we see how we operate in our lives, in our business daily lives. And we see how we save and we try to work towards retirement. All of those things are in here. This is where we get those tenets from. So Nehemiah is a great man. And I had a lot to learn from him. And I thought he was a great man. And I thought, I can't believe this, but I'm going to put him in my top 3 of people that I want to remember in the Bible. Because he was a humble man who was willing to sacrifice. And he would not stop loving his own people and his own believers to not allow them to continue going the wrong way. He wanted so much for his people to have protection and to have security. And that meant rebuilding not the wall, but the covenant they had with God. That's Nehemiah. I want to be just like him when I grow up. And I don't know about you, but I think he's a wonderful man. And he ends with, we will not neglect the house of our God. So today, you're in the house of God. Don't neglect her. She's here because someone before you paid a price. It's here because someone before you wrote a check. Someone here did something before you, many years before you ever sat in the pews. And just remember, don't forget, stay the family, remember your businesses, act accordingly, and you will have a covenant that will reach beyond your wildest dreams. God will bless you, and I promise you, I don't need to promise you, you know this. You've seen promises come to fruition, and that's the most important part. Sometimes when we're in a situation where we might not feel that faith, but we step out in it, we can only remember it when we look behind us, because hindsight's 20/20. And the reason why it's so clear is because he wants us to know that the next time we come upon a little bit of a struggle or a wall, he'll provide the way, and he'll provide the right leader, and he'll provide the right setting, and he will course correct our culture to bring us back to where we should be. And I think that's going on today. I heard an interesting tidbit. Last year, there was Bible sales was up 22%. In that 22%, there was something like 60-something%. I can't remember the number. You have to fact check me later. But 64 or 65% of that were new first-time people buying Bibles. This year, they redid it, and just up until the current moment, we're at 30% in our nation. In China, it's the biggest church growing on the planet. In Iraq and Iran and all the Middle Eastern countries, they're seeing a huge turn. Messianic Christians are coming out of Judah and Jerusalem like crazy. We are in a time where God is calling his people back to the covenant. We're seeing it. We're witnessing it. We are all a part of it. And it's because Nehemiah set the stage. He built the foundation. He served the king. Let's follow his example today. And let's all just kind of think of Nehemiah as a wonderful guy who made our future possible. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Sharlene, for a great lesson. You made sacrifices sound so easy. Good morning, Asbury class.
Good morning.
Let's see, I do have an update on Joyce. Just a minute, let me find my update on Joyce here. Okay. This is from Maryland. Hello all. We are back from the PCP appointment and it was all pretty good. This was written by Joyce's daughter. Mom has lost 24 pounds since she went to the hospital. She had lost 10 pounds when she was in the hospital for some of the fluid. She actually broke ribs, 3, 8, and 7. And 8 had 2 fractures. The others were cracked. They are referring her to in the next few weeks to a thoracic surgeon just to make sure they are healing and she is getting better. She is taking 1/2 of a pain pill and today started to eat better. Thank you all and love you all.
Is she at home?
I'm sorry?
Is she at home?
I don't know if she's at home or not. I was gonna call her yesterday and time just got away from me. I don't know if I would suspect that she is home. Yeah. I know they were gonna give her 3 days notice and that was about a week or 10 days ago when I saw her. So we still need to keep Joyce in our prayers for complete healing and relief of pain. Melanie is going to be leaving us. Let's see. She's probably going to be writing. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. She is going to Africa. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Tanzania.
That's a big trip. That's a big trip. But enjoy it and be safe.
Be safe. Godspeed.
Are there any announcements this morning? No. And Nancy's funeral is still scheduled for the June 14th.
At 11 o'clock.
At 11 o'clock?
Patty and I'll be around.
I'm
Their
sorry.
list.
Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. We'll look forward to the list. Bill, you want to leave us laughing?
Huh?
Did you bring one?
To the other coat.
Oh, dear.
Patty on the list.
The joke I have prepared is in my other coat in the closet, but I'll try to remember one I remember that's pretty good. Boudreaux lived in the bayou in Louisiana, and his wife, Lucy Ann, was pregnant, and her water dropped, so they called the midwife, and the midwife came in there, and of course, they lived out on the bayou, they had no electricity, no light, so the midwife had this big flashlight that really bright and all that. She went and started delivering, and she asked Boudreaux, said, I want you to hold the light so I can see what I'm doing. So Boudreaux was there holding the light, and first baby popped out. And they said, oh my goodness, you got a boy. And Boudreaux said, I'm so proud. Said, let's put her here and I'll take you home on the boat. Said, no, there's another one coming, hold the light closer. So number 2 came out. And Boudreaux said, it's a little girl. I'm proud, but 2 kids, that's a lot of kids. Said, come on here, put this light here. The 3rd one came out. And Boudreaux said, you think we need to shut this light off to make sure we can attract to the light? Yeah, said, we'll all stand, we'll be dismissed.
That was better than